It is Tuesday night. The sky is falling. The red coats are coming, and just about everything else you can name and or mention and is happening within Colts groups everywhere. The season is officially over. But yet it's not. But let them tell it, it is. And there's so many people to blame. Is it Chris Ballard? Is it Jonathan Taylor? Is it Anthony Richardson? Is it Michael Pittman? It's Shane Steichen. You know what? It's the Sick Podcast Amble Show, and it's time to get started. Sammy.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. And Bill Show.
Intercepted! Marlon Jackson! Marlon's got it! We're going to the Super Bowl! We're going to the Super Bowl! Marlon Jackson with the interception! He picked off Tom Brady!
The sickest Indianapolis Colts podcast. It's gonna be sick.
It's going to be sick. Before we get into that, let's go ahead and pay some bills. So, the NFL season is rolling along, and the contenders are separating from the pack. The one thing that hasn't changed this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, is the number one place to bet touchdowns. We don't care how they get them. We want to bet on touchdowns, and DraftKings is the best place to do it. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance on their own. Bet $5 to get 150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SICKSPORTS. That's SICKSPORTS for new customers to get 150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when your bet is just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
And now, that is the official sound of the anvil, and we are live. And Chris, we tried to get ahead of this on Thursday, and you gave me hell. But that's okay, my friend, because as I expected, the sky was going to fall and the world was going to flame when it came to the Indy fan base and what this team isn't or what this team is supposed to be. So we open the floor. It is official. Guess what? We're not out of the playoffs. Slim chance. But we're not out. Everybody thinks we're out. Everybody wants to put people's heads on pikes, and Jonathan Taylor is the worst running back ever because he dropped a football before he crossed the goal line, and Anthony Richardson still can't pass. And, oh, my Lord, Shane Steichen, what are you doing? Michael Pittman should be traded. Have I left anybody out?
Nope. I think you pretty much hit exactly like on every single cylinder you possibly could. Like you just went according to exactly what it was. Yes.
Oh my God. First off, before we jump into this, let's shout out our guy Pat. He is not taking his job seriously. He does not understand that DEI doesn't mean you cannot come to work. But we're gonna keep giving him a few what y'all call those civilian days. PTOs. We'll give him a few more PTOs, and then we're gonna drop the axe. But no, in all seriousness, get well, yes. Buddy.
Feel better.
All right, Chris, open the floor, go nuts, do your thing, and we will talk about it.
Yeah, for everybody that was hoping that we got in the playoffs, this is all your fault. Like I'm going to say it like this because the issue that this team has is the fact that this team is not constructed to go against any team that is going to be in the playoffs. The Broncos are the 7th seed as it is right now, and we take a 31-13 shellacking to them. and this is supposed to be who we're potentially going to be going against. Mind you, if we end up being the 7th seed, we're potentially going to be playing Buffalo. The last thing that we want to do is just get a mud hole stomped in our butts by Josh Allen and Dawson Knox catching for 250 yards. Like
But the defense played well. And it take a lot for me to say anything about that. Now there is a caveat, and I'll get into that. But the defense played the best football I've seen them play all season.
that's fantastic. The bar is low when it came to that, because we've seen this team giving up yards by the ass load. Like
The
we've seen
acreage.
them, we've seen them give up 100 yards in 2 quarters. Like before the second quarter was even over, we've
Yeah.
seen them give up 350 yards to people they shouldn't have given up 350 yards to. We've seen them give 80% completion percentage to quarterbacks like Malik Willis and like Drake May. And then and mind you, the fact that they played well against a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, okay, cool. But also, this is a Broncos team that is an 8-5 team. So their hopes were they were fringing on this. This team, and I'm going back because this is what we're told. And I'm going back to where it all starts. It all starts at the top. I'm going back to when Chris Ballard said we would be in the mix. When he said we would be in the mix. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, we're kind of in the mix on the house with the first one's out. No, I'm just kidding.
So
I am being facetious at this point.
and let me, but then also let's go ahead and just point this out too, because we are sold this bill of nonsense that we are going to be a team that's going to be competitive. But the thing is, we're not told that we're going to be competitive. We're not told that we're a team that can compete with anybody. We're just told that we're given the most blanket mid statements ever. We're in the midst. We can compete with anyone. We are always a team that is just a few pieces away from being what we should be.
I think the one that's the most fun is we're going to be built the right way, whatever that means.
It means
That's probably the funnest one because I don't know what that means. But I'm not here to bash. This is what I'm going to say. Okay, I think I'm going to speak more to the fan base, because remember I asked you last week. I said, is this win, if we were to potentially get it, would that be more for the fans or would it be more for this team and what they represent? Now I know this win, if we would have gotten it, had to be more for us, because literally, I mean, seconds, actually the whole fourth quarter, when there were still 12 minutes left and we had just thrown the 80 interception to the house to Benito, that's when everything really started to fall apart on Twitter and Colts Universe on Facebook, every page you can name. Like, I'm talking about, the darts were flying, the bullets were flying, and it was not missing anybody that was a part of the organization. And so I say this to say, I think the desperation for which we have held for so long, man, we just want to feel able to say we're going to make the playoffs confidently, whether we win a division or not. We just want to be able to say that. When we can't do that, and we haven't been able to do that now for more than a decade when it comes to winning a division, people are fed up. And sometimes we forget who we're blaming. Now, don't get me wrong. Jonathan Taylor probably made one of the biggest mistakes in his entire football career, right? Probably from the time he's played Pop Warner to now.
Yeah.
And this fan base is a non-forgiving and very forgetful fan base for like what this guy has been through, what he has done for this team since he's gotten here, and immediately he's out of here. Like, they're calling for his head. Oh, he's washed, he got his money, now he's not worth a damn. Injuries is what we will remember. Trade him. I love when people say trade him, just like that's a thing, like whatever. And then it's the Michael Pittman. He fumbled. Oh my God. But let's forget when Michael Pittman is being called a dog for catching footballs and getting his helmet ripped off, for flattening people on blocks, for playing injured, and on and on and on. But nope, he's not a number one because he fumbled, cut him. He's a bum. Been telling y'all that, blah, blah, blah. Like, we are so toxic as a fan base. And the truth of the matter is this: we just need to be realists. And a lot of us try to be that up front, but then we're called naysayers, or we're called people who don't believe in what's going on. But honestly, you, me, Pat, everybody that's everywhere knew this team was not a contending team on September 6th or whatever the first game of the season was. Mm-hmm. We fucking knew that. And what you're not going to do is be 6-7 going into a game, and then we lose that game, and then you want to absolutely decapitate players on our team because we lost the game, saying that, you know, they basically washed our playoff hopes away. Bro, we were less than 500 entering the game. Yeah. And winning the game, sure, our chances improved and our schedule was very, very favorable, but by no means was that 100% guarantee we were going to make it. So that set up the table for a Jacksonville failure in the last week of the season, or drop the ball in New York, or hell, lose this week in Tennessee, and then you just reserved all your feelings for a week. We got to become realists. That's it.
But it's hard for people to be real because of the fact that the playoffs is going to be this fan base. That would have been this fan base's participation trophy, because even if you go in, you play the wild card, and you're done, the only thing that you'll be able to go ahead and cling on to is the fact that they'll say, okay, you know what? Yep, we made the playoffs. Yep. So all we need to do, we just need to go and build from there. No, because look at the way that this team was set up. You can't go up against the AFC has offensive juggernauts. You're going to have to go against the offensive juggernauts of the Kansas Cities, of the Buffaloes, of the Baltimores. You're going to have to go against all these teams. And I don't trust our defense as a whole, because I keep on hearing this talking point about our defense played good. Our defense played good. That's fantastic. They have very little run game, and they're leaning on the pass more, and you know that Bo Nix is going to be out there throwing the ball as much as possible. But guess what? You know what they're going to do? They're going to do the exact same thing that we saw in game. They're going to throw the ball at Samuel Womack. And you know what he does? He breaks up a pass. Okay, cool. He goes, straps, cool. What do? Maybe a couple plays later. I think it might have been the next drive. You know what they do? Back. They hit him with a stutter. This time, they didn't even go straight up the sideline. They hit him with a quick and then meanwhile, this guy's in spin cycle over here, and dude's over here just going directly to the end zone, and then he gets away with one.
Just trots right off the field, like, oops.
Like we can't keep on trying to justify these performances that we have with these guys on this team, because we know exactly what this defense is, a bottom 6 defense, period.
I mean, that is 100% truth. And I think that that's part of being a realist, because you're looking at who is playing every Sunday and who has the roles and the important roles, if you will, both defense and offense, and what they are not bringing to the table. You can't have an offense these days that doesn't have some type of tight end production. We talked about that. You can't have a defense where you're starting a guy that got cut before the season started on one side and a 7th rounder on the other side, and say, we like our guys and we believe in what they can do, and they just got to get reps. You're going to have to get reps in practice, buddy.
Exactly.
Because game reps against the opposing offenses that are actually skilled players, it doesn't look good, right? Like, and so my thing with this is, because I started the intro with, like, who's to blame? I mean, I think we all can get to the bottom line that it's got to be management. Okay, fine. But that does not remedy the situation that we have here. Looking forward, if we were to clean house and we got a new GM, get a new DC, and everybody else that you want to replace, What does that even look like? Is next year a building year? So now you're still here because you got to give this new regime, if that happens, time, right? Like we are in such a conundrum because we're sitting around looking left and right of us and saying, look at what this team did in 2 years. Talking to Houston Texans, look how fast the Detroit Lions have climbed to the top about 3 years. We can start naming these other organizations that have had their own successes in their own right,
Yeah.
and we think that we should be able to do just that. I mean, maybe, but that's typically not how it happens. Going from first to last and all that type of shit, being in a tumultuous situation with Deshaun Watson and on, and then 2 years later, like you're winning division titles back to back, like that's traditionally not normal. So, and even if you take a look at the 2025 free agents, who really comes in on this roster and improves it immediately? I mean, I know you didn't do your homework and take a look, but I was just scrolling through that starting Sunday night, and I messed with it some more yesterday, and I'm like, okay, don't get me wrong, there's a name here and there, or T Higgins or something like that, but we're talking about, because you've said it multiple times, we're not a player away, we're not 2 players away.
Yeah.
So we got tons of money, so we can go out and bring in free agents, but then what? We still got to draft. We still got to evaluate talent that we got. We still got to make decisions. Do we keep people? Do we let them go? Nobody's trading. Like, this is not Madden football where you're about to like have 5 trades in the offseason. That ain't real. So I'm just sitting here thinking, like, how much of a fucking dumpster fire are we? Number uno. And number 2, how much can this fan base take? Because, man, look, bro, short of just saying, F it, I'm not a Colts fan anymore, that's what I was picking up. Everybody was like laying it on thick, man, laying it on heavy. And I'm just like, just be a realist, bro. This wasn't our season. Last season wasn't our season. The season before that wasn't our season. We haven't had a season that's our season in truth since I can't remember. And I think we had to live there. We got to live there.
So I'm going to just kind of speak to just like what you just kind of summarize, right? Because what we're looking at right now is the fact that we're going into a 3-game stretch where these are all winnable games. Now the thing is, well, everybody, I don't know whether it's being said jokingly or seriously, but people are saying, there's still a chance.
17%.
No, this like awful.
17.
Listen, but the thing is, we're not a team that's like we were never in charge of our own. Like, we were never in control of our own destiny.
Not like years past. True that.
We have been hoping and praying that other teams have to either collapse or drop games that they should have dropped, while we drop games we shouldn't have, hoping that we'd be able to still get into the playoffs just so that we can say we got into the playoffs, just so that more jobs can be secured. Because the problem is, if you go and you say, hey, we can go or we made the playoffs, that means that you have a justifiable reason to keep everybody that you have right now.
Which you can't do.
But that's the thing.
Right.
You can't, because logically, is look at the stats, it's a bottom defense. But the thing is, you know what they can say? But the defense got us to the playoffs. So the thing is, so then at that point, what you then say is, okay, so then what would it look like if you're rebuilding? And I don't want to just turn this into we just blew everything up and blah, 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 this, that, and the other. But let's be honest. You bring in new management. They're getting rid of the defensive coordinator because they're not going to do it. Steichen and AR have a 3rd year that's also a prove-it year. That will be the year where they have to go ahead and see a significant difference in how they're doing. Now, the thing is, Shane might be able to go ahead and maybe pull some more strings, because let's also be honest, Chris Ballard pulls the strings when it comes down to the offseason with free agency, with the draft, when it comes down to undrafted free agents and whatever it may be. When Shane Steichen was in Philly as the offensive coordinator, they made sure that he was surrounded with weapons, that he was given everything that he needed to be given in order for him to make sure that the offense was truly functioning and that the team was going where they needed to. And then he goes here, and Chris Ballard says, that's the way I built the team, and if it gets me fired, then so be it. So you mean to tell me that Chris Ballard pivoted, mind you, and Clyde, you can answer this for me. What has been the difference in the way that Chris Ballard has built the team in the offseason since Shane Steichen was here than any other time that he's done it any other year that he was here prior?
There's no difference.
So you bring in a new coach with a rookie
You set me
QB.
up.
So you bring in a new coach. You bring in a new coach. You bring in a rookie quarterback, and yet you continue to go and bring in guys that are these late round picks, that are these undrafted free agents, that are these practice squad guys. And you continue to go and build the team the way that you choose, even though you have a head coach who has the wherewithal to be able to properly build this team the way that they can possibly see fit. Like Shane Steichen having to come in and basically only being able to bring in his offensive or bring in an offensive coordinator of his choosing was setting him up for failure. Because the thing is, you basically handcuffed him to Gus Bradley. And of course, Shane was just going to be like, whatever, I'll work with what I got. I worked with Gus Bradley before, whatever. But you don't give him the opportunity to go ahead and work with somebody that could potentially have something more of a progressive defensive scheme that could be more beneficial to this team and more up to date. Like everything that we're dealing with right now is the makings of its organizational failure. Like we've said weeks and weeks prior, since you've been back, it's been an organizational failure. It's been malpractice on behalf of the front office to not make sure that Shane Steichen came in and was able to make sure that he's getting the pieces that he needed and that he's able to run the team the way that he saw fit, because Chris Ballard is too stubborn and he's too damn bullheaded to make sure that he's going and he's saying, you know what, I'm going to let you go and do this. You can handle it as you see fit.
I mean, and I think that's kind of, I mean, that's the tough part about this situation. Because not being in these rooms, we can only, excuse me, make our guesses and things like that. But what I'm getting at is you could tell an offensive minded head coach everything you want to tell him. But when it's time to draft, he wants a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
You gave him a defensive end, first pick this year. Right? Last year's first pick was who? Who do we draft in the first round last year?
Latu?
No. Well, the year before. It's
AR.
like okay. So yeah, you take AR, you take Latu. But there was chances to move up this time, right? So we could have potentially moved up and picked up a real elite receiver. You know what I mean? A Neighbors, or maybe you roll with Brian Thomas. Look how he's starting to, put out. Or you move up and get Brock Bowers and don't let the Raiders take him. Moral of the story is you could tell at that point, does Shane really have the authority that he thinks he has? Then you have the AR debacle in the season. And he says, nope, this is my decision. I've had conversations with management, but this is my decision. We kind of see how that goes. Like, we don't know if you're calling these shots or whatever. This doesn't really make a lot of sense. Sum it all up. Maybe you're just kind of, hey, you're the head coach. I'm going to bring in players. You get the best out of the players. Maybe that's the situation. Now, I don't want to get into things that I don't know too much about. But I think, because something came up here and it's like, Shane needs to go. I've been on and off the Shane Steichen train. Yes, the play calls at moments are absolutely insane. But I would like to see him with the same type of GM, if you will, that he had in Philadelphia. It's like, look, I got a open checkbook. What do we need?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I get it. Defense matters, but if you can't score, if you can't move the football, what is it? Baltimore Ravens 2000. You're definitely not going to win with that. I mean, that's one of the best defenses in history.
Yep.
And yes, that team did win a Super Bowl, but that was before Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen's and people who can just, get you 400, 500 yards a game, total offense without blinking. So, yeah, the defense will matter. Don't get me wrong. There's going to have to be a defense in play to make key stops and get off the field. but you gotta have an offense that's going to be able to get you 30 points. And we don't have that consistently. We have had moments, but it's not consistent. And to the point where people say, like you mentioned, we have 3 winnable games ahead of us. Well, it still is the NFL, and it's any given Sunday. And by the way, 2 of those 3 are our divisional rivals. I don't care what records say at that point. You know how division games go.
Yeah.
And we've had our season ripped from us each and every time over the last couple of years that we've been close. But guess who? A division rival. Whether it's been the Jags or the Texans, it doesn't matter. I mean, now we got the Titans. I'm sorry. Yeah, we got the Titans and the Jags this time around, 2 of the last 3. But that could have been, those games could be just as difficult just because of who they are. So I hate to look at records and be like, yeah, we was going to win out because I knew we had to play those 2 out of 3. But I mean, these are the things that we're not really being truthful with on an overall perspective. And I think we're to the point now. If we ask for change and it happens, Jim Irsay is going to have to do something that he hasn't done in 8 years, and that's stand up to Chris Ballard and break that relationship. But then again, we haven't heard from Jim Irsay really all season. So why do we expect him to make these changes? And he has not given the keys to the castle to his daughters yet, because I do believe if they had the keys, this would be a whole different conversation.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
They would be like, what's her name from Any Given Sunday? Who played the lead in that? Was it Cameron Diaz?
Yeah.
Yeah, the oldest one, she would be like him. Hey, absolutely not. I mean, if you're down on the field studying the plays and being in the ear of the head coach and kind of seeing what's going on, yeah, you're locked into the game.
Mm-hmm.
There would be some changes, but we haven't gotten there yet. And perhaps maybe, unfortunately, we don't know how much longer we have to wait till we do get there. But this ain't it, bro. And I think we got to be real with it. It hasn't been it. It's not it. And like I think Sean said earlier, next year ain't our year either. Not with this what we have.
Yeah.
And I mean, where will we finish if the season ended right now? Where will we be? Teens again? We're not lottery.
Honestly, it's just like we went 9-8 last year and we were at 15. So
Okay,
I mean,
we're 6-8 right now.
if we're 6-8, I mean you maybe move up. I think you end up possibly going 10-12.
10-12. And I have to look at the talent. I'm sure there's talent. But that's the key, bro. That's the key. We have hung our hat way too much on what's coming out of the draft and expecting these kids to perform. And I think sometimes that's the gift and the curse. Thinking about what can be, that's potential. But then they're entering the league they got to learn how to be pros. They got to go through their ups and downs. They're going to have their rookie slumps, you name it. But we're keying in on them being so effective so soon. And that's where it all shatters because we don't have a strong veteran core. And again, I struggle with that because everybody want to talk about what the Colts were, but the Colts were what they were because we drafted and hit when they were young, the Peytons, the Edges, the Reggies, the Marvins, the Freeneys, all them. And then for years we won. We were the most successful team in the early 2000s. So we're always picking at the end of the draft in the first round, 26 or beyond or some shit like that. So what you're doing is you're saying to yourself, these guys have led us there. Now we need to just trickle in a little bit of a pro here, a little bit of a vet here, and we can keep running with this. We haven't gotten there yet.
But that's been the gripe, right? Because the thing is, Pat always gets pissed off with me because I always talk about bringing veterans in. And he's talking about, well, you think you're just going to bring in some 33-year-old cornerback? I'm just like, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you have a room that you know for a fact just is inexperienced, or you know that you don't have guys who are doing any one thing particularly well, you bring in a veteran to make sure that you have somebody in that room who is familiar with how to go ahead and do different things, right? So the thing is, if you bring in a veteran tight end, for example, there's no harm in that because right now you have a tight end room where nobody has really been able to separate themselves from the pack.
It's not stifling anybody, right?
It's not. And the thing is, it's just like I said that when it came down to cornerback, right? So what do? We get Samuel Womack. And mind you, Samuel Womack, he's had some good showings, but also at the same time, he's also gotten beat like a drum. Like he's and these are the things that these are the things that we've had to understand, or we've had to come to deal with, because we constantly have to deal with the fact that if we need help, it's going to be off of somebody else's practice squad. If we need help, it's going to be somebody else that was signed off the street, that was just drafted 2 weeks or 2 years ago, and they've had some experience in the CFL. Dalton Dalton Tucker, for example. Dalton Tucker was, they were just like, oh yeah, no, he actually he's going to be pretty good. I'm actually excited for this one. Turnstile. He's a turnstile.
Absolute turnstile.
And so the issue that you have is, when we talk about picking up veterans, we're talking about going into free agency. You don't even have to go ham on like a top 5 projected free agent, whatever. You can find value guys in free agency where if you go and you make sure that you pay them, they will come.
But I mean, Chris Ballard says some things that, I mean, he's like, look, we have a cap on all guys. And maybe that is the secret sauce that everybody has within their organization when they're messing with the calculators. But I think when you project that kind of stands people off. Like basically what you're telling me is a negotiation is kind of silly. Because if I come in and I'm like, hey man, I think that I want this, and you push back and say, this is all we got you for, you're kind of like putting me in the box. Like, yeah, bro, like I know you think you're good, but you're only like $15 million good. You're not quite $20 million good. And I think that could have hurt us. But this is something I want you to think about, because of course I can't remember all these off seasons. But if this team, outside of your young nucleus at the time, the Jonathan Taylors, the Shaqs, the Quentin Richardson or Quentin Nelsons, you know, that young core that you had, this team should have been full of 2-year contracts. Oh, each and every year, because that would have pushed the needle. That would have got you more victories. That would have got you more playoff appearances. And then that would have got you more evaluation of why it's important to have guys that are in that like second, third deal that are still at a premium age, 29, 30, 27 to 31. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and get them a 2-year, 3-year. They are in a key position, corner, you name it, safety, all the places we struggle, tight end. And now you're having more of a nucleus as the team as a whole to build around. And like maybe that helps a young quarterback who got it figured out, gives him an easier road, if you will. Because right now we're watching the kid fight off 400-pounders left and right. Yeah. He looks like a WWE character, bro. Like he has to really wrestle people off of him. And then he makes the smart play 80% of the time by just tossing it away. And then it eats up his passing completion percentage. And then at the end of the game, everybody wants to harp on, oh, we gotta. Oh, okay. Well, if he would have been in there trying to be a hero, fumbling still, or fighting off a guy and then throw an interception or whatever, you're gonna dog him. But he fights these guys off, live to see another down, doesn't get hurt, doesn't put himself in harm's way, throws it away. But then you count all the incompletions at the end of the game. Like you can't win. He can't win. And I don't know what happened to this offensive line, bro. But you're right. They are literally people. Somebody was talking to somebody. He was like, oh yeah, you know, they're giving him time. It's like, bro, they are not consistently giving him 2 seconds to do any fucking thing. What are you talking about?
They're not. But you know, it's just been this O-line. It's a different formation every single week. Like like you have all these guys, but
go back to that last one, Sammy. Go back to that last comment about Polian, because there's something to be said about that. Colts were who they were because of Bill Polian. I will say this: you are not wrong, Aaron. But let's not misconstrue. Bill Polian built them Buffalo Bills and was 0-4 in the playoffs. And he built our Colts, and we won a lot of regular season games, and we won 1 Super Bowl. So Bill Polian, though he is a Hall of Famer, he's tricked off a lot of success, if you will, because those Bills teams should at least got 1. And these Colts, that run of Colts, we at least should have had 3 Super Bowls. At least.
Yeah.
too many years we finished number 1 overall, come back after our bye week and stink it up because we decided to rest players, you know what I mean, in week 17. And basically they got that week off, they got, their bye week off, and they come back and they play the Jets and they can't get off. We don't know what we're doing. We play the San Diego Chargers. Phillip Rivers has no ACLs in either leg, and we don't know what we're doing. We got a home field advantage game against, a young Ben Roethlisberger, and we can't beat them because we don't know what we're doing. Like, that's the same Bill Polian too.
Yeah, but I think, and just past Polian, we have to just be as honest as we possibly can be. We don't have a winning formula. I mean, like I said, the only move that was made in the offseason or during free agency was getting Flacco. Okay, whatever. And then getting Raekwon Davis. What has Raekwon Davis done with that 1 year, $9 million that he signed? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
When we talk about veteran corner, Dante Jackson was originally in Carolina, hit free agency, signed a 1 year, $6 million deal, $3 million cheaper in a group that actually needed it. And you know what the craziest part is? Going back to the draft, right? Because we got Latu, we traded down again to get A.D. Mitchell, and so we ended up getting those picks. The last 3 picks that we have aren't on the team anymore. Micah Abraham is on the Jets. Jalen Simpson is on the Jets. Jonah Lualu, he's playing Monday Night Football and actually is doing damn good out there on the Raiders. And you mean to tell me that we are so draft heavy, or we're so dependent on the draft, that we keep on letting those late picks that you swear by, that you continue to go and draft, you keep letting them go and they go to other teams and they thrive. So that means that you're not going to free agency to do anything of any type of substantiality. And then you're going into the draft and you're not keeping half of your picks. You had 8 picks in this draft. You only have 4, maybe 5 up to this point. And then you're filling in the rest of your roster with practice squad and undrafted free agents. This is the most mid strategy for building a team I've ever seen. And I said it before and I'll say it again. This team is run, and this is of course no disrespect to the city of Indianapolis. Love Indianapolis, lived there, fantastic. But the thing is, the way that he builds this team like a small market team, you would think should be built.
Never really supposed to win, do enough to sell tickets, that type of thing.
Yeah. It's just like, oh yeah, like the everybody's gonna root for us. We have this nice, great stadium. Everybody loves Blue, the mascot. This is all good, but at the core of it all, this team isn't winning anything because this team is not set up to be a winner.
60, 68-1. That's his record. Shane Steichen, 2 years, 15-16. That's his record.
Yes.
Haven't won a division, as we mentioned before, since 2014. Been 11 years. Playoffs twice. Won 1. So won 1 playoff game, lost 2 in the 8-9 year era. Like, yeah, man, listen. It doesn't math. It doesn't math. And every year, the other thing that is not fun, every year we're digging out of a hole, seemingly under Chris Ballard. Like, even with that, even in that luck year, we started like 1-5, didn't we? Before we got hot.
1-5.
I mean, like it hasn't been. We haven't jumped out to 4-0. Hell, we haven't even won the opening week, and that goes back to Lord. I can't even tell you last time we won opening week. Was that like 2012? No, 2013 maybe.
13. Not
yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't Luck's rookie year. Because he lost to the Bears.
Yeah.
It's the second year we won the first week of the season. Like, so none of that's good. And you're right, man. Like, I mean, as great as Chris Ballard may be as a human, as smart as he might be as a thinker and all that other stuff, like, it's not computing.
No.
And I don't think that he has, I don't want to even say the ability because that's wrong. But I'm saying, like, this is your method. I don't foresee him saying, I'm gonna save my job by proving everybody right, and I'm just gonna go out here and get every player, and then they got to shut the hell up, because then that's almost betting against yourself. Like you're wanting the team to collapse at that point. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go pay all these dudes that ain't worth damn a ton of money, and they can be like, well, at least you went out there and paid somebody. Like, nah, it's 8 years in now. You know what I mean? So there's something that has to give.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, it's not going to, because Chris Ballard has been given a, and this is the other thing that kind of like that always just kind of just bugs me, right? Because the thing is, Chris Ballard will never put a timeline on anything. He will always just kind of give like just little like blanket things, right? So, for example, one of the most famous statements that he made, I think it was during the Matt Ryan year, he says, "My clock starts once I draft a quarterback." But then, and like I said, no shots at AR or anything like that. But the thing is, what is the best way for you to make sure that you give yourself probably the most leash that you possibly could, or give yourself the most slack? You go with the guy who is the most athletic prospect that you have, who's also raw, who you know is going to need some development. Because you know that you can go and you can speak to the athleticism, but you know that you'll also be able to say, you know what, he's raw. It'll still take him some time. You know, we're still going to need a few years to go ahead and see what we got. Now, where they messed up was they didn't sit him. Because the thing is, as much as we want to talk about snaps and everything else, sometimes the best thing that you can do is just let them just go ahead and sit and digest, take in the playbook, and make sure that they're going and just doing everything that they need to before they just put them out there. The problem was he threw them out there. I don't know whether it was for ticket sales. I don't know whether it was because you're trying to get the fan base excited after having the crap year that you had prior to that, but you threw him out there. And then when you throw him out there, he has moments where he looks just as raw and as green as he possibly could be. But now you don't have that opportunity to go back and say, you know what, we're going to sit him again, because now he just needs to learn and do that, because now your season depends on what it is that you're doing.
All right, yeah.
So now it's just like you've thrown AR into a fire that he has to put out with a defense that couldn't put out a fire with waterlogged blankets. And on top of that, you have to like you are making somebody who has to grow, who has to develop, who has to process. You're making him play hero ball almost consistently, because the defense isn't getting any type of stops or any type of meaningful stops in games. Sure, they may have a couple here and there, but the thing is, they may get that sack for 8 yards back. So then let's just say they're on 3rd and 18. But then all of a sudden, Gus Bradley's backing the defense up, and then they're getting that back almost immediately.
Yeah, we've seen that
over and over. So we're having to consistently watch how mismanagement plays a role in this team, how not doing what you need to do in regards to giving this quarterback, who you know is a raw prospect, giving him every tool that he possibly can use to make sure that he's as successful as possible. And then also making sure that you're not just filling this roster with rejects.
I mean, because that's, you bring up a great point as we get here to get close to the end. And of course, we haven't done any research to say like, okay, well, who's a notable candidate that we would want to come in for GM or anything like that. But is there a fear that a new GM comes in and be like, these ain't my guys? Looks to trade Taylor, doesn't believe in the AR project, if you will. You know, like what does this look like? Like what is a new GM? And I know I'm sounding kind of silly, but what does a new GM look to do on day one? Because it's got to be completely opposite of what the old GM did.
A new GM is going to be looking at the fact that this is year 3. You will have a full off season to make sure that you fine tune your skills. You get your mechanics straight. We do these things. You meet with your head coach. You say, what is it that you need? What is it that I can provide for you to make sure that you're as successful as possible? You're getting Gus Bradley up out of here. Because let's also just take into consideration. Let's also talk about this. there are coaches as well as GMs who have spoken very highly of AR
Facts.
because of the fact that they know what he's capable of being.
Facts.
But Chris Ballard has not managed this properly because he's managed this from a standpoint of just trying to make sure that things just happen. Like, if you want to talk about what Chris Ballard has done, how many times did we hear from Chris Ballard during the whole AR benching debacle?
Well, technically none. And then he did the interview that still wasn't like a vocal like impressor.
Yeah.
So none. So it's
here.
actually zero.
So yes, but then we just hear from him, and he says, all the reports that were coming out were just absolute BS and whatever he said. And it's like, sir, you had the opportunity to speak out on this at that time, but you chose to play behind the role. Like, he let Shane take the heat, all the heat. When the thing is, at the end of the day, we know that wasn't we know that wasn't a situation where it was just Shane Steichen calling the shots and being the one to say, nope, AR needs to be benched. We know that wasn't the case. Right. But the thing is, he hit his head, and that's all that was. And so, like, any GM that comes in now, you have an opportunity to be able to look at this team. Now, mind you, it's not going to be a fire sale. It's not. But the thing is, you're going to potentially be able to go ahead and see exactly what you have. Now, some guys that may be on a short leash: Juju Brents, Jelani Woods. I mean, you're probably looking at the running back room. I don't know what you do with JT, but I know you're probably not going to keep Trey Sermon.
Absolutely not.
I mean, if we're looking at how this team goes, you're probably not going to keep Braden Smith.
Absolutely not.
If we're looking at the defensive side of the ball, you can get Taven Bryan up out of here. You're not going to re-sign Raekwon Davis. You're probably going to be looking at EJ Speed. I don't think you re-sign EJ Speed.
I don't know if you go that far, but I think you go to a more conventional defense. And I don't know what that means for Kenny at 30 years old.
Well, so the thing is, I think Kenny has more than proven his mettle when it's come down to what he can do. However, you're bringing a veteran into that room.
Because can you keep starting Kenny?
Yeah.
How? Because you stay in that 4-2-5 unless you go to a 3-4-ish.
Well, so the thing,
create some shit. I don't.
So the thing is, if you keep Kenny, then, and I'm going to say, depending on who you bring in as a defensive coordinator, you're potentially going to make sure that you're keeping Kenny inside. So now he more than likely might be able to actually play his natural position as opposed to having to play CB1 all the time, because we keep on hearing how he's the best nickel in the game, and he can barely ever play the nickel position.
I mean, true, but he wanted to get paid like more than a nickel. And so I think that the only way this works is you bring in a defensive coordinator that's more of a 3-4 guy. You're going to have 3 traditional linemen. You can now stand up Latu as that rush outside linebacker. And then you can still play Kenny on the field. And it's still somewhat of a silly scheme. But at least he's on the field in a more practical position, because having 2 linebackers in this NFL day and age is foolishness. It's absolutely foolishness. Like, I mean, the middle of the field is so open, it makes no sense, bro. Like, Bo Nix would just step up and be like, oh, there's 12 yards. Because one linebacker's over there and one linebacker has, the middle of the field to cover. There's 12 yards. Like, I don't know how you get away with a 4-2-5 in this day and age. I have no idea. It just doesn't work in the NFL. It's not college football.
Well, and you know what? I think that's going to be up to whoever the next defensive coordinator is, because, I mean, truth be told, I like what Brian Flores has been doing in Minnesota. And the thing is, Brian Flores, he gives different exotic looks, but also he's great at disguising coverages. He's also been great at making sure that if he has guys that are coming in, then he has guys who are blitzing.
Yep.
He's frequently sending pressure.
Yep.
And that's something that we're not doing in this scheme.
I mean, I feel like our position group, and though they're not that great, but if they had a Dom Capers type mind where he had that psycho defense and people lining up all over places, and this guy drops, this guy goes, like we're fast enough to make plays in the defense like that. But a pure base set, this is what we're giving you. Here's the writing on the wall. You're
Yep.
going to shred that like cheese, and it's been happening for 3 seasons.
Exactly. And so that's the reason why it's, like I said, a new GM coming in is going to look at that scheme where they're going to look at a lot of those players. Now, the thing is, there's no brainers, but the thing is, you're also looking at that as an evaluation year because you're going to see exactly what you have. Now, the thing is also, while you're evaluating, you can bring other pieces in. You
that's
can
where
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I got it. Because I'm thinking of, what are you thinking? 35 or 53?
I'm thinking right now that if you are looking at this team, you're looking potentially at, I'm going to say, I'm saying you're looking at having to get rid of maybe about half the guys who are starting right now.
And so that's what I'm saying. Like, to be successful, somewhat, you got to have some type of nucleus. You're not going to bring in 80% new guys. That's probably impossible. But you're not going to bring in 80% turnover and expect change because those guys got to gel. So that's what I said. Like, I'm thinking you got to keep like 65% of the team.
No, so like I said, and I don't think that this is something that is also going to happen all in one season, right?
Oh, it better because Coach Nation can't happen.
But the thing is, but also this is how we're going to just premise this also, right? So here's the caveat: you are going to have next year. It's going to be a prove it year. Best case scenario, AR gets his shit together. He shows out and he proves that he's that franchise quarterback that we've been looking for. He shows development, he shows poise, he shows improvement, and he shows that he's the guy. Shane Steichen gets the piece that he needs and everything goes well. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, AR makes no improvement and we know exactly what it's going to be. GM says, you know what, Shane, it's been cool. Good luck. He says, AR, it's been cool. We're sending you elsewhere. And then you go and you get your guy the following year. That's pretty much what it is. That's literally what it is.
But wonder if this is the situation. Wonder if it's the Tennessee Titans. Bring in Callahan, bring in Rand, let him cook. We supposed to do this. They clean house. They get rid of all the old heads. They're moving on. We drafted well. Our defense is good. We brought in some key pieces, and we are shit. Well, and it almost looks like Vrabel was a better coach than Callahan, like a 40 times better coach. So then you got that situation. I'm not saying that that's going to be, our likely outcome, but it could be because, I mean, he was looked at leaving San Francisco talking about, he's coming from a great tree of coaches and leaders from the John Lynch crew, if you will, and he has stunk it up. They stink. Callahan, he was great, and Cincinnati is the OC, and oh man, he's gonna do all these exotic things. They stink.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know what? I don't know what I mean.
But you know what? But I will say, what I will say is that, and I'm not saying this just because it's the Titans and they are not as motivated as we wanted them to be, but I'm gonna say this like this: Tennessee was in far worse shape than what we are right now.
Fair.
A good GM is going to be able to come in and make immediate changes to the point where you don't have to look at a 2 to 3 year rebuild or whatever it is. You could look at it as more so of a retooling, perhaps.
But consider this though, Chris. More than likely, this is a first-time GM. Like this, whoever you hire is not going to be second time, third time around GM. Like it, I mean, I don't want to say that's rare, but how many people get a second, third GM job?
Yeah. But we
So
also
they got to learn too. Like you're managing more than just the roster. You're managing the entire staff. You got to figure out what your draft strategy looks like. You got to figure out what's your goal. Like, I mean, and I'm not saying that stuff is not stuff that every GM should be good at, but we're going to have to give this guy grace. Are we not?
No, we are going to have to give him grace, but also at the same time, the best organizations are the ones where each level operates strictly on that level, and they're making sure that they're supporting these other people. Right now, you can tell Chris Ballard is not supporting Shane Steichen. Chris Ballard is making sure that he's going according to what he wants to do, and he's continuing to go and make it awkward for Shane because Shane isn't able to really construct this team and really run this team the way that he's supposed to. So if you get a GM that is able to come in and is able to support Shane and say, you know what do you need? And he says, you know what, they have what's the name, the tight end from Las Vegas, Michael Mayer. We see that he hasn't been really getting used, but you know what, I think he'd be good in this scheme. Can you see if they might be able to go ahead and let something go for him? GM goes and makes a call. They say, oh, yeah, they're willing to let him go for a 4th-round pick. Now you have a certified tight end who's not being used out there, and now you can go and you see that, okay, now we got somebody here.
I need some gap years. Go get me Njoku.
Yeah, exactly.
For 2 years. At 29 years old, wherever he is, go get him for 2 years.
Like, the thing is, the right GM is going to make sure that there is support and they're not going to hang you out to dry. Chris Ballard hung Shane Steichen out to dry with this whole AR debacle. And not only that, but Chris Ballard continues to just do things his way, and that's the only way that he's going to do them. And that alone is the reason why he's pretty much just aged himself out of this job. We're on his 8th season, and we're 129 games in, and we're still under 500.
Facts.
So, I mean, it could it possibly, and I mean, if we're being honest, could it be any more mid than what it's already been?
No, I don't think Chris Ballard uses the word mid, but it's been bad. It's been bad, and I've had my significant disagreements with certain things from the draft. I mean, everybody will never, ever forget how passionate I was about why the hell we drafted a wrestler when there were so many athletes at wide receiver, and that was a glaring need, and we drafted a wrestler.
We drafted a wrestler.
So, yeah, I don't even want to go down that. Won't even have time to go down that road, but it has been a wild road because for all the things that he hasn't done well, he has absolutely drafted some players that probably were going to be first ballot and may still be first ballot. Talking about Quentin Nelson. Shaq probably would have been, barring injury. Jonathan Taylor still, Michael Pittman still, the same draft. Like there's been some moments. There's been some moments. And then there's been some not so great moments too. So we'll just leave it there. We're way over time. Let's get out of here with our handles real quick. I just feel like we had a lot to say. So let's bring up our handles. Where can they find you, Chris?
At CJ Colts fan on Twitter. I'm gonna call it Twitter because that's what his mama named him.
Yep. And you can find me at Colts Clyde on the X. I'm gonna call it X because I'm just gonna get with what the new group's saying. Get your tokens and your AI bots.
So you're siding with the DEI
kidding.
hires.
I'm just
you're siding with the DEI hires. I see they flipped you. They flipped you, didn't they?
Right at an hour, we're out of here. Sammy, take it home.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast and Bill Show on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.